So we're here today with Andrew, the creator and founder of Foundry VTT.
Hey, thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So first of all, for those that don't know, what is Foundry?
Yeah, so Foundry Virtual Tabletop, it's a self-hosted application for running role-playing games online. So you're probably familiar with other virtual tabletop platforms, but if you're not, it's a piece of software that allows you to kind of emulate the at-table experience in a digital environment. So you have the tools that you would have at a physical tabletop. You have dice, character sheets, a canvas that sort of gives you the sense of a battle map where your tokens are positioned. You've got things for tracking turn order and combat, and compendiums of all the sorts of different monsters that your party might encounter while you play. It's got audio, it's got built-in video. So it's got all of these tools that can allow you to create a storytelling experience for role-playing games in a shared online platform. So it's web-based. So as the host, as the dungeon master, you're running a piece of software which hosts a server that your players can then connect to. So they just go to a website through their web browser that they already have on their PC or laptop, and they load into a virtual tabletop where they're able to, all of you together, experience in sort of a synchronized way the dice rolling, the storytelling, moving the tokens around the map, stuff like that. So for those of you who are familiar with the concept of a virtual tabletop, this will all sound very familiar. Foundry Virtual Tabletop borrows a lot of inspiration from existing VTTs that you might already know, but it's different in a couple of key ways. So it's self-hosted. You kind of own and operate your own server. You own your own data. You manage your own data structure. It gives you a lot of autonomy and freedom. It's very modular, so it has a very heavy focus on extensibility. And for any developers out there, it has a very rich API. It's a full JavaScript stack, so you're building web applications within the Foundry environment that plug in and kind of integrate seamlessly with the software to extend it. And it's also web-based, as I mentioned before. So there's no kind of hurdle that you have to get your players to climb over in order to join your game. All they need is a web browser, which is something they've already got. So you don't need to get them to install a piece of software to use it. You just give them a link and they connect directly to you. So there's lots more that I can talk about Foundry depending on what questions you have, but hopefully that's a good introduction.
Well, and how's it? So basically everyone's going to compare this to Roll20. So how's this differ for Roll20?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a large number of ways, and to be clear, I began my career as a dungeon master on Roll20, so I have a lot of admiration for that platform in terms of getting me super excited about this space. One of the key ways it's different is that you are hosting your own server. So rather than Roll20 hosting the game that's persistent, that's always on, they manage it, they manage the server, they manage your data, they manage your access to content. You manage all of those things yourself. So that's one key difference. And you can self-host Foundry in two ways. You can either run it natively just on your own PC as an application, or you can run it as a dedicated cloud-based server if you want to maintain like a dedicated server that's always online. You can do both of those modes. And the second mode creates an experience that is sort of very similar to that, where your game is always available. It's always there for someone to join and log in. The first experience, where you're just self-hosting using the application, people just connect to your PC and connect to your game when and only when you're running and actively hosting the app. Some other key ways that it might be different is because it's a piece of software that you buy and you host it yourself. Foundry Virtual Tabletop, it's a one-time purchase, so it's not a subscription model. It's not a service that you pay on a recurring basis to access. It's just you buy the software and then you own the software, and you get free access to all the updates that I'll ever put out. You get access to, of course, the software itself, but also there's a ton of kind of exclusive bonus content that I am really happy about. Partnering with artists and creators in the community. There's lots of like cool content that you can get for free as well. But yeah, it's a one-time purchase business model, and then so that's another difference. And then I think in terms of obviously like what exactly the virtual tabletop does, we both programs take a different approach to how certain types of data is managed or stored or modeled, or how certain interface elements work, or how different aspects of immersion or functionality work. Those are more like minor details. Obviously, it's different in some key ways, but otherwise, there's kind of similarity in terms of the high level concept of what you're using the software to do.
Mm. Yeah, one thing is that's specifically different for me anyways, is you have a one-time purchase and you can host, you can choose your own hosting provider, but there is a company that's specifically for Foundry, right? Called Forge.
Yeah, that's right. And so, I mentioned you can host your own dedicated server in the cloud. Like you can spin up your own instance and you can install Node.js and you can install the software and you can manage it. You can manage that server and you can manage your DNS and everything else. That's a bit of a technical hurdle for some people that like, I want all of the functionality of having that really persistent dedicated server, really fast connection, running on like a really great web host. Like I want all of those things. I don't want to set that up myself. There's actually two partnered hosting providers. One is called Foundry Server and the other is called The Forge. And both of them offer you sort of a turnkey based premium hosting option that is a little bit more similar to Roll20, where you would be able to pay on a recurring basis for the service of having that that server always online. Both of them are really good. They work great. I partner with those guys very closely. And I think that's a great option for someone who wants that, but doesn't want to deal with the hassle of managing it all yourself. So all you have to do is you just show up there with your Foundry license key, and then you can get a server up and running in minutes, if not seconds, with them.
It's like $5 a month or something like that.
There's different tiers. Both services offer a couple different tiers. I think the key differences is largely around like the amount of storage quota that you can have for storing like assets and stuff, as well as some other sort of features that maybe different models have a little bit expanded support or expanded functionality for some things. But it's not, none of the actual virtual tabletop features are contingent on your tier that you use with that service. So there's nothing like, oh, you don't get advanced audio, or oh, you don't get the best lighting system, or you don't get like, there's nothing that actually affects the user experience of the VTT itself in those tiers. I think it's more like how much data you can store, whether there's some like extra levels of support that you can get. But again, I don't necessarily speak directly for either of those partner businesses, but I would definitely encourage you to check it out if you're looking for that sort of dedicated hosting option for Foundry without wanting to go to the hurdle of setting all that up yourself.
Yes. Yeah, from what I saw, they weren't too expensive. I set up my own server, but I don't know if it was worth saving the like extra $250 a month.
Yeah.
For going through all the hurdles. But I do have a lot of dynamic dungeon maps, which are video maps.
Yeah, those are large. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Each one's about 300 megabytes or something like that. So that could probably get you in the end if you have. One of the cool
things you can do, and you can do this whether you're using Foundry self-hosted or just on the Forge or Foundry server, is you can integrate Foundry with AWS. So you can use S3 or any S3 compatible storage. Like there's other service providers for that, but that can let you like host all of your big content, like dynamic dungeon files.
Yes.
That can let you host that big content in the cloud, and then you get sort of nice fast download speeds for all your players, and you don't eat up your own sort of storage on the host machine that's actually running the software.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I just don't want to get too technical for the users, but yeah, that is how I'm doing it. But even then, it's still S3 is not free. When you have about 10 or 15 video files on there, you're still spending a few bucks. I mean, it's not like outrageous, but I'm still spending a couple dollars a month just on S3 hosting, which for S3, that means you have to have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you have a lot of stuff.
I'm hosting some other sites on S3 for like, applications basically with Connect APIs. I'm literally spending like 50 cents a month, and that includes like DNS and everything. So I think my S3 is like 10 cents or something.
Well, I think one of the cool things about Foundry is that if you're someone who's a little bit technical and you have strong opinions about what you want your own game mastering experience to be. It's very flexible. Like you can achieve so many different types of setups in terms of where you put your files, how you're structuring your data, how you set up your server, how you handle the hosting. All of that is very configurable. So if you're sort of a hands-on DM that wants to have a lot of autonomy and control over your ecosystem in which you run games, I think that's one of Foundry's very strong suits.
Yeah, it is. And also it's got a lot of modules which allow for a lot of customization of how you want your game to be without you having to even touch code or look at code or worry about anything. For the average person, I recommend just getting one of the hosting services, downloading the modules you want, and going from there. There's a lot of YouTube videos actually on what the modules do and stuff like that. So I found some good ones. Yeah, and you can do, it's all kind of from like 3D dice that roll for you to like dice trays to there's weather effects. There's all kinds of stuff you can choose from. Trying to think of other stuff like there's a lot of cool features that I can't even think of off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
I love the Foundry module development community so much. The folks that are active, it's really, they're incredible and to work with. We all kind of hang out on Discord and sort of talk about Foundry all the time and all the different APIs and things that they want to see added. And there's this really nice push and pull where when I do software updates, I can make all the sort of underlying API changes, which then allow for that next generation of cool functionality that the system and module developers are building. And I think, when you take into consideration, I didn't mention this earlier about Foundry, but it first released in May. So it's still pretty new. But for something that just released in May, about 4 or 5 months ago, we've already got 435 modules and 63 game systems, which is a really incredible number for that amount of time. And I think that really sort of speaks towards the extensibility and the flexibility of the Foundry software, that it's able to let creators in the community to come up with all of that content in such a short amount of time. And it's really good stuff too. It's like this high quality game systems and mods. So
yes,
it's really something that's really exciting for me.
There's a lot of systems there. A lot of obviously all the major ones are there, and then a lot of not so major ones as well. I was looking through the list the other day, and also you've got eventually, you already added one. There's basically pre-made adventures, and eventually I assume the plan is to allow people to purchase pre-made adventures. They can just load with all the lines drawn in and all the lighting drawn in, I would assume, and the tokens and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of the hope. I think working on that side of, like, working on the commercial development of that side of the Foundry ecosystem is something that's kind of an ongoing project, because when it comes to making the core software itself better, that's something that I can drive forward and the community modules can drive forward, and we can move really fast. We can create a lot of great content with very little friction and very little barrier. I think when it comes to figuring out the right way to license and authorize access to like that sort of premium game ready content, that's something that a lot of thought's going into it and a lot of work's been done, but it's a little bit more of a kind of steady thing to negotiate all of the details of that with different publishers and content creators, and that work's underway. So I expect that you'll be seeing some announcements on that front pretty soon.
Nice.